Welcome back to Littler House. As we get started on our makeup pouch bag, the first thing I'm going to do is make my bias binding. So what I have here is approximately an 18-inch square, and the first thing I will do is divide this in half along the diagonal. Okay, I have my square cut into 2 triangles, and now I'm going to shift them so that I can sew this long edge to this long edge. So just shifting it like this and lining those edges up, I will put them right sides together and just sew along this line here. Okay, I have sewn my seam. It is just a simple straight stitch all the way down this side. Now I have pressed my seam open. Finally, I have run 2 lines of stitching alongside this seam, catching in the seam allowance on the back side. This will be a little bit hard to visualize right now, but I promise you will thank me later for this, because this is going to be your binding around your edge, and you will be threading cord through here to the other side. If you don't stitch this seam allowance down, your cording will get caught every time you try to go past this seam. And I promise this is far more aggravating than you think it would be. And in fact, it could completely prevent you from being able to thread your cord. Next, I need to draw some parallel lines across the width of this fabric. And I'll just use a long ruler to make a straight mark every 2 inches. Here we are with our lines drawn, and we're ready for the next step. We're ready to sew our 2 ends together now. So what I'm going to want to do is I am lining up these lines to be able to sew them back together again. However, I'm going to shift down 1. So rather than this line, my first one, lining up with my first line over here, it's going to line up with my second one. We're shifting the whole piece down 1 line. So your first line on one side is going to line up with your second line on the next. Second line with the third line with the fourth line, and on down. Do about 3 of your lines, put some pins in, and then do a check. And that's how you're going to know you're on the right track. So if I put those 3 pins in now, when I open this up, you can see that actually my lines line up. Again, we're scooted down 1, but where it looked like we were on an angle and there's no way those lines are lining up, you can see that they do. I'm going to take this to the sewing machine and I'll be right back. So here we are. You have what appears to be a very bizarre looking tube now. I am going to do exactly the same thing I did before and press this seam open, and I'm going to add my 2 lines of stitching down either side of the seam. What we're going to do next is find our lines, and we're going to start cutting. Starting from this offset edge, I am literally going to cut directly on this line, and you keep going in a spiral all the way around this tube, and you'll have 1 continuous length of this bias. So I have finished cutting my tube into 1 long strip that you can see here. From that 18-inch square, I got 4 yards or 3.7 meters of bias binding. Now all I have to do is take it to the ironing board, and I will fold it wrong sides together, and I will press it in half, and I now have single fold bias binding ready to go. I hope that helps. Leave me a comment if you have any questions, and I'll go over anything that isn't clear.